another quote by Pennington that I love shows the natural outflowing of love toward others when one is in love, when one is connected that deeply. There's not a moral thou shalt not kill or that thou shalt not. It's just, who would dare think to hurt another person when one is filled with this spirit? Living in harmony with others in community seems to come easier when one is grounded in communion with the divine. Our life is love. Our life is peace. Our life is tenderness and bearing with each other and forgiving one another and not laying accusations one against another, but praying for each other and helping each other up with a tender hand. One of the things that most attracted me to Quakers was my discovery that women were considered men's spiritual equals from the beginning. I was blown away when I learned that. And I was amazed that a community of friends would honor a woman's spiritual leading to travel in the ministry and agree to support her family while she was gone. One quotation from Fox particularly surprised me in how vehement he spoke out about women's right to speak as a minister of the Spirit. Pardon me if I get a little feisty with this. And may not the Spirit of Christ speak in the female as well as in the male? Who is it that dare limit the Holy One of Israel? For the light is the same in the male and in the female, and it cometh from Christ. And who is it that dare stop Christ's mouth? It occurs to me, I wasn't going to sing this other one, but I'm feeling called to sing it. And let me see. I'm blanking on how it starts. Sometimes that happens. Oh, yeah. Especially in this particular gathering, I think this is a really good one. Let not the sons or daughters or the handmaids be stopped in their prophesying, nor the young ones in their vision, nor the old men in their dreams. So everyone may improve their talents, everyone exercise their gifts, and everyone speak as the Spirit gives them utterance, so that all plants may bud and bring forth fruit to the glory of God. Fox. And also, I want to mention that Esther Muir, who had a lot to do with getting the Quaker Bible Index online, I asked her if she would go through and show all the places where these quotations were referring back to Scripture, because practically every one of these quotations has metaphorical language or actual quotations from Scripture. And so she did that, and that's on the PDF file. And that was helpful to me because I have not been a Scripture reading. from my tradition growing up even, we weren't even supposed to read the Bible. It was something that was hidden away. And I've just not ever been really drawn to it, but lately I have been getting more interested. And I think that that's one thing that early friends can, in a sense, do, is bring us back to where did they get these quotes from, you know, and it's fascinating to see how much is there. And it strikes me, too, that early friends, it seems like they drew out the best of the scripture. Early friends spoke often of the truth. And we know by that they didn't mean a doctrine to be believed, but rather the eternal Christ Spirit that was calling us all to live now in the kingdom of heaven. Or as my Australian friend Jerry Bytley says now, the rule of love. He thinks that's more appealing than the kingdom of heaven, the kingdom. The rule of love. Once convinced of the truth, there is an inner calling to testify it to the world. I loved this simple statement of Margaret Fell's, wherein she describes who Quakers are and what their hopes for others are. We are a people who follow after those things that make for peace, love, and unity. It is our desire that others' feet may walk in the same. We do deny and bear our testimony against all strife and wars and contention. When I first began working as a peace educator in the early 1990s, I hadn't realized that so much of the curriculum that the curricula materials that I was using were developed by Quakers. And growing up in a Catholic Christian tradition, I had always heard and been saturated with love others, you know. We all know we are Christians by our love, love one another, just always. But I think that somehow the Quaker understanding of responding to that of God in each other and drawing out that of God gives a more complete understanding of how to love. And that's meant a lot to me, to see the goodness, to look for the goodness and bring it out. This is a quotation from George Fox that I was happy to hear that notion of there's that of God in everyone. I'm happy to find the full quotation and be able to have that in my heart now. Be patterns, be examples in all countries, places, islands, nations, wherever you come. That your carriage and life may preach among all sorts of people and to them. Then you will come to walk cheerfully over the world, answering that of God in everyone, whereby then ye may be a blessing and make the witness of God in them to bless you. I spent a year sojourning among friends in Philadelphia after my 9 months at Pendle Hill. And I have to say that I am so grateful for the opportunity through the Minnie Jane Artist in Residence Scholarship to get time at Pendle Hill. And my story is in that PDF file, but when I first went to Pendle Hill, I had intended to write at least 10 songs, and I was going to learn how to play the guitar better to accompany myself, and I had all these goals set out, and the committee there, some of the members pulled me aside periodically and said, we just want you to make sure that you're led by the Spirit here, and you don't have to stick to what you wrote in that proposal, and I was totally shocked and cried at the thought that I wouldn't have to be held accountable to something I said I would do. And so that year, I just ended up taking so many classes. As Laura was on staff then, she knows, I just really was drinking in Quaker history and talking to other students, not knowing at the time that that would lead to anything musical, you know, at all. I just was feeling bad that I wasn't doing anything creative with music. So the next year, I didn't feel like I was finished with Philadelphia, and I got asked to do an artist in residency at a Quaker school in New Jersey, so I went back up there. And during that time, next 10 months, I volunteered as a docent at Arch Street Meeting House. And if you never, raise your hand if you've been to Arch Street Meeting House. A lot of us from the Midwest haven't. And I absolutely fell in love with that place. It's the largest meeting house in the world. And I gained a great deal of knowledge about William Penn while I was volunteering there, and about the contributions that he made to what I consider the best ideals of our country. And I wish that our history books would say more about Penn's contributions, but I don't think they will, because he was a peacemaker. And at the time that the Quakers were in the majority of the Assembly of Pennsylvania, there was a decided stance against having any kind of militia, any kind of military to protect the colony at that point. And I know that they don't want that in history books, and that they refuse to pay war taxes. So I could talk on and on about William Penn, but for now, I just want to share two passages that I found and loved. One of the things I realized when I was in Philadelphia was that he had named many of the streets that are still there, and he made sure that they were named after trees instead of people, instead of philanthropists or well-known citizens. He named them after trees. It would go a great way to... I'm sorry. I sing these things so many times you'd think I would never forget them. It would go a great way to caution and direct people in their use of the world, if we understood more about the creation of it. For how could we find the confidence to abuse it, while we should see the great Creator stare us in the face in all and every part thereof? And he had such a love of nature from things I've read. And he also was so far ahead of his time in so many ways. I learned that in the late 1600s, he had written quite a detailed essay called describing how they could start a League of Nations in Europe to prevent war. And he had so many ways of having arbitration procedures and ways to resolve conflict peaceably. In that essay, I forget, Paul, where are you? You probably know the title of it. Remember the essay about starting a League of Nations?
On the Peace of Europe.
On the Peace of Europe, thank you. Okay. So this quotation is one that I probably saw on the internet somewhere, and I've since have learned not to trust quotations on the internet because they're not always exactly accurate. And in this one, it seems like what somebody did was take an outline of that essay and piece it together as a quotation. So these words are Fox's words, but they weren't said so succinctly in one little... I'm sorry, Penn, thank you. But and I wasn't going to put this on this collection because it's not exactly in a meditative place or in a to do with the Creator or love in one sense, but Penn's vision was so clear that there was a very important role for government, unlike many things that we're hearing that the news tends to cover these days. And I worked all last year with a teacher who goes to all the Tea Party things. And I wanted so much to sing this to her, but I didn't. Peace requires justice. Justice requires law. Peace requires justice. Justice requires law. Law requires government. Law requires government, not only within nations, but also between nations. And I'll close with a quotation from John Woolman that, and I realize that John Woolman was not considered an early friend, like all the others that I included in this collection, but I loved this quotation so much, and I think that Woolman, you know, for so many of us, is like the epitome of Quaker saint, you know, and that his life was in so much alignment with his experience of truth. And Joan, you want to sing this with me? Do you feel up for it? Two. Uh-oh. Yes. Okay. This is the one song chant, I call it, on the recording that has harmony, but the harmony is made from a round. Some friends of mine helped me make this into a round when they heard it. I'll do part one so we can, yeah. We can sing it together once and then we'll do it. Okay. If you know it, I've sung it around at gatherings in the past, so you might know it, so join in. May we look upon our treasure, our furniture and our garments. May we look upon our treasure, our furniture and our garments, and try to discover whether the seeds of war are nourished by these our possessions. May we look upon our treasure, our furniture and our garments. May we look upon our treasure, our furniture and our garments, and try to discover whether the seeds of war are right which by these our possessions are nourished by these our possessions. I have time for questions and answers. I don't know if we're okay in the bookstore if I did that. If you want to ask any questions. And also I'd like to pass around a yellow sheet if anybody has any ideas. This is for Quaker Press. If anybody has any creative ideas about how we could use this for outreach, or how we could get this out to the world, this collection, because music somehow, I think, travels over the airwaves, literally. And so just to pass it around, if you have any thoughts or creative ideas for Quaker Press for their, just pass it on.